So, hi, Mike.
Hey,
Here we are.
hmm, good to see you again. It seems like only a couple of days, possibly because
Yeah,
that was a couple of days.
it was, but it's always, you seem very light and happy, and I actually am too. So, that's kind of a fun uh,
I've had a
coincidence.
very enjoyable, easy couple of days.
Nice.
And
That
the weather's been
helps.
lovely.
Okay.
And it was at that time that I spent with Linda Joy at the end of her life.
Right. We've,
And it's the week leading up to Easter in 2016. So it was about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. And on the Monday, we had visitors on a visitor on the Monday, and then in the evening, she took a sudden turn for the worse, and she went to her room to rest. And I don't think she left the room again. Up to
mm.
that point, she would sort of rest in her room and then come out, and we'd hang out in the lounge.
So she was in at home. Where
Yeah,
is this? Oh, okay. I had some
yeah.
picture of a hospice or something. So
No,
yeah.
it was
Okay.
really, really the last. She didn't want to be in a hospice or a home or anything. She stayed in the home. The doctor came and visited us,
Okay. Hmm.
so she went to her room, and she suddenly needed a lot of care that I wasn't qualified to give, and several of her woman friends were visiting in shifts. And we have these marvellous people in the UK called the district nurses.
Hmm.
So they're fully qualified nurses
Mm.
who operate in the community. So they come, they visit. So they came twice a day again for personal care,
Mm.
which was brilliant. So the support we had, professional support we had, was brilliant. The support of friends we had was brilliant. It was like a village formed
Mm.
around us,
Mm. Mm.
and they were looking after me a bit as well. Particularly the friends, not the nurses, the friends, because I was exhausted. I was emotionally and physically exhausted. I'd not slept properly for weeks.
And you were living with her, right? Is this where
Yeah,
you
yeah,
shared?
we shared
Yeah,
the
this
house.
I had
Yeah,
forgotten that too, that this is when you were housemates, so to speak,
yeah.
and very close. Okay,
Mm.
that's an important piece. Right.
So because it had been become like we would hang out in the lounge, and I wouldn't typically go to her room. I realised on Thursday that we'd hardly spoken for several days, and I said this would be sort of late afternoon on Thursday. I said I'm gonna go and sit with her for a while,
Hmm.
and the friends who were there who'd also been
In her
visiting
room, right? This is
in
you've
her
been,
room, yeah,
yeah,
which
you
I hadn't
hadn't
done
been to
before.
her room and she hadn't been
Mm,
to the lounge. So now you, yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So I went to sit, and I guess it was about 4 p.m. And so I took the chair, and she was very frail by then. She was in and out of sleep. She was a little restless.
Mhm.
She was receiving a lot of morphine. The doctor, she had a syringe. I think it's called a syringe driver. So it's like
Mm.
a constant stream of. Hang on, my phone has decided I'm trying to talk to it. So she was getting a constant stream of morphine. So
Right.
she was. So she wasn't fully with it, but she was in and out of sleep. And we had agreed that the friends that were spending time with her that she loved to have company and she didn't want conversation. So she liked someone to be there. She didn't want them trying to talk to her.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
so for a moment, I was thinking, well, what am I going to do? I could sit here and read. I could sit here and daydream. I could surf the internet on my phone. And I thought, I'll, I'm just going to see if I can stay present, or how long I can just be here and present,
Yeah.
present to my friend.
Just a loving presence in the room,
Mm,
silence. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I mean, typically, if I try and meditate, I can do two or three breaths at most, and then oh look, there's a squirrel, and my mind's just off. That's what it's like inside my head.
Mine too.
And hour and a half or 2 hours later, I noticed that. Well, first I noticed it. I thought, oh, I'm hungry and thirsty, and I've been here and I've been present for hour and a half or 2 hours. I haven't. as far as I could remember, I had only been present for the whole of that time. And in that time, she would sort of wake up, turn her head, she would look at me, and we would hold each other's gaze for a moment, which was really sweet.
Mm.
And there was a quality about that presence that we had with each other that I thought that is the most trust I've ever experienced. It was so precious. And then yeah, so that seemed to naturally come to a conclusion after about 2 hours.
Because
And I thought, yeah, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, and
yeah,
I said,
you had something else bodily in a sense
mm,
that brought you back to your own sort of body, not that you were out of your body, but another thing calling that was strong enough
yeah,
to
and I
come
said
through
to
that.
her, "Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to go and get a cup of tea and something to eat. I'll come
Yeah.
and see you later."
Yeah.
And
Wow.
after then, I thought, oh, that was so precious. That was
Hmm.
so remarkable that we'll do that again tomorrow. So this would be Thursday. So about around midnight, I wasn't there. I was in bed. There were a couple of woman friends with her. They said that she fell asleep around midnight and didn't wake up again. She died about 9:15 the following morning. Mm.
Oh.
Mm.
Uh. Whew. I got a wave of like kind of chills, but
Mm.
not negative, but just sort of a stream of wow. Mm. Wow. That deep communion in silence and presence that you shared with her. She knew you were there for sure.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
And you knew
yeah.
you were there with her.
Mm.
And nothing more needed to be happening but that.
No,
That's,
the whole that time she only spoke once,
uh-huh.
and I don't understand what. Well, I know what she said, but I don't understand what it meant. She sort of lifted an arm. She didn't quite point. It was as though she didn't have the strength to straighten her fingers to point. So she sort of pointed like that with sort of relaxed fingers, and she said, "A special station for you." And I said, "Sounds lovely,
Oh,
thank you."
yeah.
Mm.
She knighted you.
Mm.
Oh my. Wow.
So that yeah, that was one story about trust. And then I
Yeah.
was thinking, that's how I knew it was possible. That was something that had been the idea of the quality of connection and trust that was possible. The idea had been with me for quite a few years. And when I discussed it, even with NVC trainer of my acquaintance, when I discussed it, she said, "What you're imagining, that's not possible. You can't
Doesn't
have that."
exist. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And but I didn't give up. I didn't believe that was correct. I continue to believe it was possible. And later that year,
Can we pause for a second there?
sure,
I wonder if you're
sure.
open to a, uh, maybe it's I'm not sure what this is exactly. Maybe it's a reflection or maybe it's my own interpretation or something brief, but
Hmm.
the um the trust that she gave you, but also the trust you gave yourself
Hmm.
in some way where you went, well, let me see if I can just be present. And then you entered that. You trusted yourself to be in that kind of intimate space, whatever that might be, not even knowing what it might be. And uh, you know, it's allowed that experience to happen for you, with
Yeah.
you, and with her. Yeah.
And I think in those times when something is invited from us that is beyond our experience,
Hmm.
if we approach those moments with a awareness of our ignorance and an open mind, we discover gifts and skills we didn't know we had.
Yeah.
We don't know we can, and I could do that until I
Yeah.
was with a friend who was
Yeah.
a few hours from dying.
Exactly. Mm.
So there's a gift I didn't know about. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That to me just is like as essential a naming of trust that happened as what I was imagining, that you were trusting her, that it was trust
Hmm.
from her that you were mostly highlighting. So I'm like bouncing it back to you and saying,
Yep.
yes. And your own trust um, was perhaps as much a participant in that kind of outcome as what she offered you. Hmm.
Hmm. And I think at times like that, I mean, the two things that go together are trust and integrity.
Mm,
I heard it described as trustworthiness,
right,
and I thought that sounds a little too close to being a judgment to describe someone as
right.
trustworthy or not.
I, I've
So
heard the
I
term,
chose, and it's a need. We can
yeah,
name in an MVC sense, we can, as a universal need for integrity.
integrity or trustable. When someone is trustable, I've heard
Mm.
that term, which is a little less, seems a little less judgmental in some way. Uh, Yet it's a quality that we can sense, or maybe we build. I don't want to get you off track for your other story, but for me, it's like I talked about, we teach people how to love us in the sense that, and also we become intimate, emotionally intimate and safe pretty much incrementally as adults,
Mm.
a little bit more, a little bit more, and through our actions and through our behaviors, and how we show up with each other. That's where our hearts open more and more and more to this feeling that, a discernment that someone seems pretty trustable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that it's not an on off thing. It's more of a progression. Like
Yes.
I'd really love to be
Yes.
in this quality of trust, and I'm going to release some defenses, and the more that continues to work and it's safe,
Right.
the more I trust the other person, the more I trust their integrity.
Yeah.
I can
Exactly.
continue to and become more and more vulnerable, less and
Hmm.
less defended, and
Open
more.
more and more and more. Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of learned. I didn't have the language. In a sense, I still don't. I have Clinton Callahan's language, which doesn't quite fit for me.
Hmm.
Hmm. Which is this is the second story.
Hmm.
Because so the next question is okay. So that quality of connection is possible. How do I? It's like I don't think that Linda Joy and I would have discovered that unless she was very close to dying, very close to death.
Maybe not that level, right? That depth,
Not
because
that
you'd
level.
already cohabited and
Yeah.
learned some real uh, basic uh, companionable skills, whatever, some things in there that you already had
So I'd
managed.
learned what was possible.
Yeah.
Something perhaps that that allowed me to learn, helped me to learn.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so later the same year, I went to Mallorca for a training with Clinton Callahan called Expand the Box. And in Clinton's language, the box is where we each have our own box and we live in it. And the box is our defenses and beliefs and assumptions and I guess our traumas as well.
Mm.
And if I mean I could talk for hours about that training. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
it was great. It was valuable. It was funny. It was deep.
Mhm.
Some of it was a bit weird. One of the exercises we did was so I guess there was probably 30 people there, and we worked in pairs, and the exercise is to sit opposite the other person, and then to consciously choose to set the box aside and let the other person meet the being. This is Clinton's language.
Mm,
The human being that's inside the box,
mm,
sort of that raw human experience, which
mm.
obviously again requires a great deal of trust that the other person is going to handle that with care.
Right. So
And so I sat opposite a German woman who I hadn't met before and didn't know, didn't hadn't worked with in any of the other exercises that Clinton set. She didn't speak much English, and we sort of went through the procedure that Clinton described, and I just sat there and I went, oh wow, and I sort of looked at her. She looked at me. I said, oh hi, and then
ah,
I heard Clinton across the room. He said, you might be tempted to just say hi and just sit there, but he said I would like to have a conversation. So we sort of looked for something we disagreed on. I thought it'd be interesting to find what it's like,
mm,
and we found something we disagreed on, and it just didn't matter. It was completely irrelevant. There was
mm.
no sense of being any problem at all. So we
Wow.
just so it was that experience that I'd had with Linda Joy of just letting all the defences down and just absolutely meeting another human being.
Mm.
Mm.
What's coming up for me is the thought, I guess, the mind bubble of um, focusing on the beauty of the other person.
Mm.
Just simply the beauty of the other person so strongly that, you know, nothing else can interfere with that in a way. And that for me is I'm focused in my own beauty, or I can't open my eyes and see only beauty. It's almost like,
Mm.
when I'm in the energy of love, everything I see is colored with love. And it's sort of um, it's not you or me in a way. It's happening. Love is happening, or beauty is happening.
I'm trying to remember it to see. I would probably describe it a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like beauty becomes irrelevant as well. Beauty is a sort of value and a judgment, and that's set aside as well. And there's no sense of that either.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
this wow, this is
It's
what it's like to be human without all these defences.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's this hey, this is better than drugs. I'm told.
It's called love, maybe. I mean,
I think it kind of is. Yeah.
these words have value judgment. I think of the Native American sort of, and I'm not intimate with that, but the beauty way to me seems to be the innocent way, the loving way, the
Mm.
inclusive way. It's a
Innocent. Yeah.
word, and I don't think of it as physical beauty in that way. I'm just thinking of
Mm.
like the beauty of life in that kind of sense, no matter what. Um,
Yeah, because I
yeah,
mean, beauty is actually quite a flexible, confusing
yeah,
word.
yeah,
So yeah, it is, and also there's that sense of love that Mickey talks about, Mickey Cashtan,
yeah. Mm,
NPC trainer for people
mm,
who are watching this who
mm,
don't know who she is.
mm-hmm.
Um, she was talking about what she believed the prophets mean when they say love your enemies. And she says it doesn't mean you have to become friends with them and take them for a drink. It means recognizing that they're human, they're made of the same stuff,
Right,
motivated by the same needs. And then I thought, so then suddenly it becomes doable and possible to
right,
love the people that I dislike or fear.
right, right,
Yeah, they are scary, they are frightening, but they are made of the same stuff as me. They are
right.
motivated by the same needs.
Yeah,
So
they're
there's that love in that sense.
Yeah, the core, the love
Basic.
of life or beingness, or it's the reverence, I think, that you often talk about. Just it's not personal in a way. It's um it's so beyond personal and the personality. It's I think of it as just basking in, when I see an innocent child look up at me, an infant, that look,
Mm,
that's the look I'm talking about. Just like
yeah,
awe. It's almost like the awe of a person, no matter, that's at the essence. That's the essence of everything. And it's a yeah, yeah,
yeah. I've had actually. Now you mention it, I hadn't made that connection, but now you mention it, I've sort of briefly had that quality of connection with a child.
yeah,
I mean, quite often their attention isn't long, but I remember being at an MVC gathering
yeah.
and a friend's child was there, who I guess was 3 or 4 years old at the most,
Mm, mm, mm-hmm.
probably, probably not quite speaking yet.
Right.
And just sort of, I was sitting on the floor and she stopped in front of me and looked at me. And I thought, yeah, it is. It's that. Yeah, being meets being.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I,
Mm,
I like the word communion because to me, and I think that has a religious connotation. I'm not using it that way, but it's like coming into union. It's almost like you are
yeah,
me, I am you, we are this. It's awesome. Like it's so much impossible
I
to
get it. I
name,
like that word. Mm.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. Yeah. Ah, yeah.
I could, while we've got a bit of time, I could briefly tell you another story about that week with Clinton Callahan that was really quite funny.
Sure. Go right for it.
It was um, it was another one where we worked in pairs, and so I was paired with a different woman. I can't remember much about her, but it was an exercise in hearing what someone's really wanting to say when they're very, very angry. So when they're screaming with rage,
Mm,
but just to
hmm.
not listen to the rage, but listen to what they're trying to say. And we'd already done exercise in getting in touch with their anger, so we were already quite good at that.
Oh, I can find my anger right away if you just
Yeah,
prime me. No
switch
problem.
it on. You want things to make yeah. So
Can I stop you for 1 second though? Because
sure.
I've been wanting to say this, but somehow, and it may just be how you want to tell the story, but
Mm.
I'm sensing you looking down most of the time and not toward me. And maybe that's because you're speaking and not listening.
That's
But
because you've got our pictures are the other way around to how I'd like them,
oh, I did that. Oh, you know what
And
that
I
is?
can't
Hold
move them
on.
because if I try and move it, it says you cannot move the video because you're following the host's video order.
I wish you had told me that because I thought I unchecked
Ah,
that earlier, and because I started it in the other
well, now
group and
you
I
do.
thought I had unchecked it. So I'm so sorry. Thank you for ah,
There we go.
thank you, Zoom. Okay, so
So we're meeting in, I guess you call it a small conference room, about 30, I guess 30 people, but give or take,
mhm,
in a hotel in Mallorca. And one wall is completely glass. It's
yeah.
an interior window, and it's just glass all the way. And the other side, there's a sort of lounge area, and in the lounge area is where we get our refreshments at break time. So we're sat there ready to begin this exercise of listening to the other person's hear what they're saying when they're in a rage.
I'm remembering that you've shared this with me. I want you to share it again, but I somehow I'm remembering people on the other side of the glass, seeing all these people yelling and then something like that. So go ahead, tell the story now that I've
Yeah.
spoiled it.
So Clinton says, so I want to see some anger, you lot. This isn't NBC. And he said, if you're having trouble getting in touch with your anger, he said, if you're a man sitting opposite a woman, imagine it's your mother. And if you're a woman sitting opposite a man, well, what's your problem? But we start this exercise and we're howling in rage at each other, and the other one's listening. So we're not yelling at each other. One's listening, one's yelling. So there's at least 15 people yelling in rage at someone sitting opposite them in a chair. And the waiter comes in with our coffee and biscuits for the break, and he looks through the glass in horror. He's in the lounge area with this trolley with teas and coffees and biscuits, and And then Clinton turns to him and goes,
I don't know. Love it. They're just crazy. What can I say? These people.
"Yeah, I've got this 30 crazy people. Who knew Germans could do it?" Because most of them are Germans. Who knew Germans could do this?
He sounds like a real character.
Yeah,
Totally,
he is a real character. He's one of those
not much
lovable.
filter on him. He's willing to be just all that he is
Yeah.
and trust that and let people take care of their own emotional responses or
Mm.
reactions to that.
Yeah, he's got terrific boundaries. He doesn't get mixed up
Yeah.
with other people's shit. He's very good
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Quite a role model in that sense.
Yeah. That's quite a bit of
Mm.
liberation if you're raised in a
Yeah.
culture where you are brought up to feel responsible for everybody's emotions around
Mm.
you, you know, um, male or female. I think that's how, and what is your status, and, are you being judged, and how to manipulate so that you you don't uh so that you stay on top in some way.
And that the exercises we did where we became I forgot what they call it. It'll come to I think they might call it stellating, where we learn to be in command of our
Mm,
feelings.
mm.
Around anger, I thought I've noticed that since how tremendously valuable it is to be aware of the things that I'm angry about and to be aware of my anger. Because if I'm not, and particularly it depends on one's status
A
in
lot.
society, because we're in a
Yes.
hierarchical
Right. Where is the
dominance
power? How
culture.
much power do you hold? Yes.
So the less power you hold, the less you're likely to get away with expressing anger. So people end up with repressed anger. And if
Or
we
in
have repressed
jail or
anger,
dead. Yeah, sorry, but
if
that's
we have repressed anger,
mm-hmm.
it can be weaponized against us,
Oh yeah.
and we end up with Trump
Yeah.
and Brexit and flat Earth and all sorts of
And
nonsense.
Hitler. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
precisely. Yeah, precisely. Yeah, that rage
Yeah.
is somebody else is directing our rage.
Oh boy, and if they can point it at someone that we should hate,
Yeah.
then now we have an outlet.
So we end up voting for things that are actually definitely not in our own interest.
Right. Those unresolved, and anger is a legitimate emotion.
Absolutely.
It's the system saying, wait, this isn't working for me,
Mm,
whatever it is, I deserve better than this.
this
And,
will not do.
so and it's got a lot of energy and power and fire if we can listen to it, you know, and recognize, wow, there's an unmet need here, basically.
Mm.
And I'm not getting it met. And the longer I don't get it met, the more agitated and, volcanic I become. And
There's
so,
an interesting theory around that from I think a British psychologist. I haven't read it because her book I think is actually quite academic and it is available, but it's about £75, so $90.
I had a feeling of weight.
Someone who
It's
has a copy.
75 pounds worth of academic. Like
Yeah,
I was
and
going to
it was
carry
probably
it.
very hard to read because it'll be academic. But
Exactly.
somebody I know has the copy and has read it, and she had explained that this theory goes that there's a difference between rage and anger. That rage is old anger that was never expressed,
Yeah.
and
Mm,
anger is in the moment. So the anger is about what's happening right now, what I'm not satisfied with, and what I want to
mm,
change right
mhm,
now. And
mhm.
any rage that comes up, and the thing is with the rage, it's old anger, old unexpressed anger, and expressing it now doesn't it
Resolve it.
doesn't it
Yeah.
doesn't yeah it doesn't dissolve it. So it'll keep repeating over and it's kind of like trauma,
It's like
getting
a
re-traumatized.
PTSD, right? You just keep
Yeah.
touching it and then re-stimulating it. And then,
So it just
uh,
happens over and over again, which
yeah.
is probably how we get people who are sometimes described as rageaholics.
Yeah.
They just don't seem to be able to move on from that rage.
Yeah. They maybe just don't really get listened to whatever they need. They're not held
Mm.
in the kind of way, the same way we hold for someone, and you did for me in that previous session, our sadness and our grief. The rage is another emotion that if it isn't accompanied, I think, if someone can't just really just resonate, wow, yes, you're angry, whatever, and feed it back and let someone have that and move through it, then it is like a PTSD trauma, and it
Mm.
doesn't resolve, and it eats away at people
Yeah.
and continues to color. And like you say,
Be very
when they
damaging.
feel the anger in the moment, then all that rage wants to come through then also, it taps into it.
Yeah, that's an
Yeah,
interesting point. Ah, yes, that's an interesting point. So that it then becomes, it goes from being anger to being another expression of rage. So somebody appears to be far more angry about the
exactly.
situation than we might think is warranted.
Right. Way out of proportion than
They've got
to,
40 or 50 or 60
yeah,
years
yeah,
of
yeah,
unexpressed rage coming up behind it.
yeah. And when we're
Mm.
hijacked and taken over like that, we aren't actually in some way experiencing it, whatever. Like if I have anger right now and it's not turned to rage or some past, you know, buildup, then I can be actually aware of it and sort of uh witness it in myself and perhaps find use from the information it gives me. But once it locks into the rage, I'm out of my body, I'm out of my
Mm.
mind, I am not able to um actually be with it as I'm experiencing it in some way.
It's more that
Yeah.
it's with you rather than you're with
Right.
it. The guy who invented the term in what do you call it? Emotional intelligence, called that emotional hijacking.
Right.
Basically, it's approaching 100% of our capacity.
Yeah.
Is in the emotion, which is most often anger.
Right.
Then we have no way, we have nothing, no capacity left to
There's no
choose
there's no
what
cognitive
happens.
ability. We're
Mm.
gone. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the time when people get like that. That's when in the UK we're really glad we're not allowed to have guns.
Right. Because there's just no capacity to have any rational, you know, second thought about whether you pull a trigger.
Mm.
It's an action that just it's compulsive at that point. We're just compulsively acting. Mm, that was fun.
Yeah, wasn't it? We've got quick pause for a moment. We've got 15 minutes still.
Yeah, yeah. I meant it
And
just was,
no plan of what to do with it.
yeah,
But
let's just take a moment.
pause now.
There might be
Mm.
more to just sort of milk out of what's been shared. I'm imagining. Uh yeah, just maybe some space for what could arise. Uh I have a desire to share with something with you, to share something with you. This book. Let's see if we can see it. Yeah.
The continuum concept.
And then can you
The
read that?
sense of happiness lost. Jean Liedloff.
Lidloff. She's actually a local to me person. I think you might really enjoy this book, although her writing style is somewhat difficult to read. But she really she lived with an indigenous tribe in South America, and she closely observed how they raise their infants and then how their
Mm.
culture is, how they relate to each other. I've been taking some notes out of it because I read this years ago, some years ago, and we've talked about this in earlier podcasts or recordings, episodes, but it's about this idea of how we experience our very early years as an infant and how we're related to how that kind of forms um, kind of our way of being in the world, and whether we're attended to emotionally and our needs and so forth uh, adequately in order
Mm.
to get a sense of ourself and how to relate to other people. Do we see them as someone other that we need to sort of, you know, marshal ourselves and be kind of wary of or suspicious of or protecting ourselves against that, you know, or do we see them as part of our community and our, you know, safe, trusting uh, possibility in terms of communion or close intimacy? Uh, and like I say, though, personally, I find her writing style somewhat difficult to follow in a way. It's not anyway, I probably don't need to say that exactly. But she found that this particular indigenous group held their baby when they're born. They're on the mother's skin. They don't get taken off to some little room and wrapped up in a baby and in a blanket and screaming and crying. You know, it's just so obvious to her that the birth, then the mother is immediately skin on skin in arms, she calls it, with the infant,
Mm.
and stays that way. That infant sleeps with, works with, that mother carries that infant until the infant starts to want to get away. And at that point, the infant will be on the ground and it creates, you know, creeping and crawling and whatever, you know, it wants to do. And an entirely different relationship uh, seems to emerge from that, where the child has given his independence at that point. And rather than the mother or caregiver overlooking and trying to take care of it and read its needs, they offer this kind of freedom. So the mother's engaged, available, but not, you know, watching out for, in a sense, the infant. And the infant is trusted to do what it needs to and to come back when it needs and ask for what it needs.
Mm.
So a sense of, you know, confidence and a sense of uh, mattering, a sense of empowerment is right there, assumed.
I don't know if you come across this in the UK, possibly in the USA. There's a practice called contact parenting, which some of the hippies of my acquaintance practice.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing was there was a woman that I used to have a buddy call with. I haven't spoken to her for ages, and she wanted to do this, and her husband was dead against it. He was convinced that they would
Wherever the
raise a
child,
sort of clingy, dependent child.
exactly.
And I said to him, you know, my experience of the kids that I've met, who are now in their teens, who had that kind of parenting, that they are far more easily growing into independent young adults when they're ready.
Yes.
So they don't become clingy independent. Really, quite the opposite. They're probably less dependent. But the other thing with those kids, none of them went to school, and they didn't really do well. They were supposed to be home educated, but basically they played all day. And
Well,
when
I
they were
think
ready, they
there's,
learned what they
yeah,
wanted, what they needed.
I think the contact parenting, and I haven't studied it, but I think it has part of, you know, part of a helpful way of
Mm.
being with the child, but maybe not all of it, you know. Um, and I highly
Yeah,
recommend you get this book
it's
and
not
read
the
it.
whole
It'd be
story,
fun to
but it's
talk about it.
demonstrated.
But yeah, because
Mm.
we end up seeing that these children want to learn the ways of the tribe. They want to be involved. They want to be working right away. They want to be, you know, contributing. They aren't sent off to school. This is, of course, a much more less kind of modern or civilized. You know, I don't think they have schools, but they learn all that they need to
More
learn to live in their
technological.
tribe by
Mm.
living in it and being, you know, once they show an interest, they're, you know, it reminds me of the Maria Montessori method that I read about for, I'm getting an error message. What is this? 45 minutes. Time is up. 45 minutes. Breakout room. Okay. Let me see what to do with this. My clock doesn't say that. I don't remember setting it to 45 minutes. Let me do something here. Let me just
Mm,
pause
sure.
us. Keep out breakup rooms. Let me send a message to everybody. All right, let me see if that does that. I think I broadcasted it to everybody. Okay. So,
Yeah, we have quite a few Montessori schools in the UK. They're quite popular.
yeah. Well, she talks about um, in the teenage years, and I don't know if they do this actually with Montessori. I read her theory, her books on theory, and she talks about by the time children are 12, 13, we want to give them actual life experiences. And she uses, I'll never forget this example. Let's have them like actually run a hotel or a store, and all the things they need to learn are in all those roles, and they can have the
Mm,
responsibility, they can use the educational system as a resource to figure out, oh, I need more information on this, how do I figure out how to do this, and that the teacher or whatever would direct them to find those resources and be kind of like a mentor, but that they were really given real responsibility and real life. So their own work or time that they spent would result in real outcomes that they could then see and learn from. And I'm truncating it quite a bit, but I thought, yeah, why do we keep kids like all the way in school systems all this time where they just often don't even have to pay for school or don't have to figure out where they live, nothing that's really what's required to be a kind of functioning adult in this society.
mm. That was
Yeah.
something else with the home unschooled kids that I knew. That they occasionally surprised me with what they were capable of, and I thought I was thinking, there's no way I can't think of a good example at the moment, which is unfortunate
Mm-hmm.
because I remember many times even thinking I couldn't do anything like that when I was 10 or
Right.
12 or
Right.
whatever age they were.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I wish I could have a good example. I will
Yeah.
program my creative unconscious to come up with an example for our next call.
That'll be great. Yeah. Yeah. I think our systems really, in a sense, make uh, our citizens
Mm,
dependent, and then dependent on the government, dependent, uh, and when we're capable of so much more, you know, and I don't mean independent, but interdependence, but also, can you imagine knowing at age 5, I have been given this responsibility. I've got to do this thing, and they expect me to know, and I do know, and I matter. I matter to the tribe. I matter to the family. I have this task that I do that's important, versus, well, okay, get in the car. We're going to take you to soccer now. I don't know. I just think, this is a very brief kind of way to point that out and say it without more story, but um, I've seen it in children. I've seen children, and Montessori talks about this too. There's the practical life skills part where a kid wants to sweep and they're given a broom and they get to practice, whatever it is, the things that are needed instead
mm.
of being taken care of and done for and expected to not know and expected to not be able to learn. And
Yeah, and
um,
expect it to not know. That is a weird one, isn't it?
yes, yeah,
That's
it's
the
the
assumption of ignorance.
paternalistic kind of culture that kind of,
You can't know that because I haven't told you yet.
right, exactly. Whew.
Mm.
Wow, you said
I'll
it.
have a look at the book. It'll be a while because I've got a couple of books backed up, but I'll have a
Yeah,
look. I'll get the free sample on my Kindle so I can
there you
see
go. Yeah,
how her style is for me.
yeah. If you need
Because
me
if it's
to, I'll send you my copy.
well, you know I'm dyslexic,
I
so
don't know if it's on Kindle. Oh, you
difficult.
found it. Okay.
Difficult. Yeah, I found. While you were talking, I had a quick flashed
Yeah,
over to
I saw that you did that. I didn't know
Amazon.
if there was a
Yeah.
Kindle version.
So It depends because being dyslexic, if a writing style is difficult, it will probably be very hard for me to read.
Well, maybe I'll send you my notes. I pulled out a few notes that are kind
Mm.
of not cliff notes exactly, but the things that landed for me. That might be easier. Yeah.
This is why I've got Fox helping me through the Friends of NGL joining process because I was a little overwhelmed when I tried it on my own. There's some reading and there's some questions like, do you agree with this? How much do you agree with this?
Oh, wow.
And then I looked at it and I thought, oh, well, last time I looked at it a few months ago, and I looked at it, oh, fuck it. And I just walked away. It was too hard.
Yeah, sometimes getting through the hoops. Uh, I've had
But when I
these,
read about it, when I hear about NGL, I think this is an organisation that I am strongly aligned with.
right,
I
with
would
their
like to be
goals,
included.
right? With
Say
what
again?
value, with their values and with their goals, you're aligned,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. So
It's
that, yeah, I'd like to be in that tent.
I'll be fascinated to see how it
We have a phrase
implements.
in the UK. I don't know if what it translates, but it's about we can either be outside the tent pissing in or inside the tent pissing out. I think basically it's better to be inside the tent pissing out.
I would think so. It's like not to spit into the wind,
Mm.
because
So that's a tent I'd like to be in.
uh I'm going to do some let me just make a little closure with you here
Yeah, sure,
because
because people are going to
we're
be
at
thinking about something.
time and this is always tricky to record when we're in a bigger group setting and then we
Mm.
record. Hmm.
Mm.
Good meeting.
Yeah,
It,
interesting conversation.
yeah. Yeah.
I
Enjoyed your
appreciate you listening to my two stories about trust.
You're
So
welcome.
two experiences that are precious
Yep.
to me.
Trust and then
And
anger and rage. We had that piece too.
yeah,
Yeah. I love diving deep with you and
me too.
yeah. So let's do a sign off
Yeah, one of
here.
those
Yeah.
hearts to the camera.
Hearts to the camera. Love to all.
There we go.
Nice.